So a verb is a doing word. It denotes an activity or an action, be it physical or mental. It doesn't really discriminate. Mental activity. Physical, I think, is straightforward there. Walking, talking, these are things that you actually do. And then when you talk of mental activities, thinking, maybe dreaming, things that you don't actually physically do, but they do take place, right? So these are also activities, even though they're not physical. Like I'm saying, for example, thinking. That's something that you're actually doing. You actually do think. It's an action. So it's represented using a verb. So we see here that verbs can be said to be in infinitive form. We're going to look at, we need to know what infinitive form is. So in order to be able to identify infinitive form, we just think of a verb that sounds natural. The form of the verb, not the verb, but the form of the verb which sounds natural, where you can actually just say it preceded by the word to. The way you say the verb when it's preceded by the word to, and it actually makes sense, it actually sounds okay. That is the infinitive form. That's one of the easiest ways to identify the infinitive form. To eat, to cry. Right? For instance, in the examples here, eat, we can say to eat. We cannot say to eaten, right? We cannot say to eating or to ate, but we say to eat. To eat sounds natural. So that's one of the easiest ways of identifying the infinitive form of a verb. We'll discuss it again. Verbs can also be classified as in those classifications there, which we are going to look at in a very short time. Let us look at the infinitive form again in a bit more detail here. Well, we just said it's not finite. In other words, this is the form of the verb in its most basic form. If you have to think of that verb, and you'd actually now consider that every other expression of that verb is actually based on that one particular word. Right? Run. You can say to run, right? Yes. Everything regarding running, right? Running itself, or ran, or, runs, all those different is running, they're all based on the action to run. So that's the basic form of the verb. Right. If you're using a very small dictionary that doesn't about to explain every single word, you find it normally it will just take the infinitive forms of verbs. It will not have the word running listed there. It will just have run, and then under run, that's when they'll now express the different forms of the word run. So when we talk about infinitive, we should just think of the word which sounds natural when preceded by to. However, if you look at the last point there, not all the time is it that the infinitive form is preceded by to. But like if I say run the water, for instance, I'm not saying to run the water, right? Yes, say run the water. So but it's still in the infinitive state. So a finite verb, on the other hand, this is the actual verb, the actual thing, the actual action that's taking place in the sentence. The sentence, when you say something, the objective there is to express mainly an action between a subject and an object, or sometimes just relating to an object or relating to a subject. But the action has to be there. You cannot report something without any particular action. So in some cases you find that numerous actions, numerous verbs, actually verb words which exist in a sentence, but only one of them is the true action that you are reporting in that sentence. So that's why we see here that it's the background of the sentence, and it's responsible for the tense formation. In other words, a finite verb is determined by the noun or the pronoun. The form of the finite verb changes with the pronoun that's there. If we may take a few examples there to make it easier to appreciate. If we look at a finite verb, for instance here, the word write. In its infinitive state would be write. Write with a W. Its infinitive state. So we see here that depending on how the sentence structure is, the form of write can change, because that's the main activity that's taking place that we're referring to here. It's writing. So Niha writes letters. You see, it's writes. I write letters. I wrote this assignment last week. You will write a test in a few weeks' time. They have written letters. You see that depending on what the sentence subject is all about, the form of the word write changes. But if a verb is not infinitive, if a verb is not the finite verb of the sentence, we see that it does not change. It does not depend on the subject. It's independent of the subject. It can remain exactly as it is. For instance, if we take sing in this particular case, we see that sing there does not change. Whether I'm saying Rahman has to sing, or I try to sing, or they try to sing, it doesn't really matter who is trying to sing. The word sing remains the same. The reason why the word sing remains the same is because it's not finite. Every sentence should have a finite verb. So in this particular case, we see that the actual action that we are referring to, or what the sentence is talking about, is not the singing part, but rather the trying part of it. He tries to sing. So the finite verb here is try. That's why we see there that the word try is constantly changing depending on who is trying, or depending on the context, depending on the verb tense. Rahman tries to sing. We try to sing. They tried to sing. I am trying to sing. You see, it all depends on the context of the subject, and of course the tense. So now that we have gotten that introduction out of the way, let us look at the 7 different types of verbs, or instances of verbs. We have what's called an action verb. This is as opposed to a stative verb. See, action and stative verbs, these are different types of verbs. These are in comparison to one another. An action verb denotes an action, an actual action. Lee eats the cake. He's actually doing something called to eat. Right. In the previous examples that we had here, we find that these are also action verbs. Niha writes letters. He's actually in the process of doing something like that. Rahman attempts or tries to sing. Both try and sing are actions. These are actual things that you are doing. We also have what are called stative verbs, which now express a state. You're not actually in the process of liking a cake. If you're Lee in this example, Lee likes cake. It doesn't mean that Lee is doing an action called to like cake. It just simply means that it's a state, a condition that exists. Yes, so Lee likes cake. I am at home. This is a state, a condition, a situation that actually exists. So normally we find that we associate these with thoughts or emotions. Not necessarily, this is not always the case, but most of the time when you say Eric loves Nell, you see that to love is an action, but it's not a physical action that he's actually doing. The point, it's actually a state, it's an emotion. Eric loves Nell. In this case, Nell loves Eric. Okay, a transitive verb. This one is another pair where we have transitive versus intransitive. So here when we talk about the transitive verb, we are saying that the verb actually has to have a direct object. What does that mean? It means that when we say after stating the verb, that verb has to be related with a particular, it actually has to mention a particular thing, the actual object, the thing that thing is being done to. So in other words, you see here, it says note there, direct object is can be found by finding the verb and asking what. So the action has to have a direct object. I saw. If you just say I saw, you don't specify what you saw, that is called intransitive. But if you now specify I saw the dog or I saw it, now remember the object here could either be a noun or a pronoun. And now notice here before I saw dog, there's a word there just before the dog, before the word dog there, it's the, right? This is one of those things. It's called an article. We'll look at that in the very near future. But we can consider it as part of, it actually denotes that dog there, right? It's part of the word dog in the larger sense. So that is the object. The subject is me. If you remember when we talked about the pronouns again, we said that as a subject, the first person there would use I, not me. You don't say me saw the dog. You can say the dog saw me, because now I am not the one who's doing the seeing, the dog is doing the seeing on me, right? So in that particular case, I'm the object, the dog saw me. Lee ate the pie, or just Lee ate. When you say Lee ate or ate, it's intransitive. You have not answered the question what. The rain fell. You see, that's an intransitive verb. My throat hurts. It's different from saying my throat cannot hurt. My hand hurts. Okay, let me say, this example. My hand hurts. If I put it that way, it's just intransitive. However, if I say my hand hurts the person who is under it right now, we see now here that it is transitive, because I've actually specified the what part of it. It hurts what. So that note there, we see here that we can have the same word, like the example I just gave, my hand hurts, as being transitive or intransitive, depending on the sentence in which it's used. Yes. Oh, okay, let's hurt again. I didn't even notice that the example is going to be hurt again. Yeah, she hurts him sometimes. It's transitive because you specify who she hurts. She hurts him. And then if you say he hurts what? He doesn't tell us what he hurts. Just saying he hurts because of what she does. So it means we're looking at that as intransitive, because we're not answering the question, what does he hurt?
Like this video and subscribe to this channel for more such content.